I never thought I'd be afraid of my own reflection in a computer screen. But life has a way of turning the most mundane things into sources of terror. This happened during my sophomore year at Eastern State University, back in 2019, when I was still trying to figure out who I was and where I belonged in the world. Like many college students, I spent most of my time alone in my dorm room, surrounded by textbooks and the gentle hum of my computer's fan. My social circle was practically non-existent, limited to brief interactions with classmates during lectures and the occasional small talk with my roommate, who was rarely around. The only person I could really call a friend was Marcus, a computer science major who lived down the hall. Marcus was the kind of person who always seemed to know about the latest technological innovations before anyone else. He had a peculiar fascination with artificial intelligence and machine learning, constantly talking about how these technologies would revolutionize our future. While I didn't always understand his technical jargon, I appreciated his enthusiasm and the way he could make complex concepts somewhat accessible to a psychology major like myself. My parents lived about 6 hours away, and between their busy work schedules and my academic commitments, visits were rare. Mom would call every Sunday, but those conversations often felt hollow, like we were going through the motions rather than actually connecting. I missed seeing their faces, reading their expressions, and just being in their presence. During one of our calls, I mentioned how much I missed being able to see them. My mother, always the problem solver, suggested we try video chatting. It seemed like such an obvious solution that I felt silly for not thinking of it sooner. The next day, she ordered me a high-end webcam black model with all the latest features. When the package arrived, I was like a kid on Christmas morning. The camera was beautiful, with a glass lens that caught the light just right and a solid build that spoke of quality. Setting it up was straightforward, and within minutes, I was making my first video call home. Seeing my parents' faces on the screen, watching them smile and laugh, made me feel closer to them than I had in months. For several weeks, everything was perfect. I had regular video calls with my family, and even reconnected with some old high school friends through various messaging apps. The camera became an essential part of my daily routine, a window to the world beyond my dorm room walls. Marcus was particularly impressed with the camera's quality. He'd recently started a YouTube channel focused on investigating internet mysteries and urban legends, and he couldn't stop talking about how perfect my setup would be for recording his videos. After some persistent convincing, I agreed to let him use my computer and camera for his channel. The arrangement seemed simple enough. He'd text me when he wanted to record, and I'd clear out of the room for a few hours, usually heading to the library or campus coffee shop. In return, he offered to help me with any computer issues I might have. It wasn't a particularly fair trade. He was definitely getting the better end of the deal, but I didn't mind helping out a friend. His channel started gaining traction quickly. His first few videos were well-researched deep dives into internet mysteries, exploring everything from abandoned MMORPGs to supposedly haunted websites. One of his most popular videos investigated the disappearance of a teenage blogger whose last post had become a creepypasta sensation. The production value was impressive, and I felt a small sense of pride knowing my equipment had helped make it possible. About a month into our arrangement, things began to change. Marcus started showing up at irregular hours, sometimes late at night, claiming he needed to record while the inspiration was fresh. His videos became darker, focusing less on solving mysteries and more on exploring the shadowy corners of the internet. He began talking about the dark web, cryptocurrency scams, and hidden services that made me uncomfortable. Then, abruptly, he stopped asking to use my computer. When I texted him about it, his responses were vague and dismissive. He started avoiding me in the hallways, and when we did cross paths, he seemed nervous, almost guilty. I tried not to read too much into it, assuming he was just going through something personal or had lost interest in his channel. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to use the bathroom. As I was settling back into bed, something caught my eye, a faint red glow in the darkness. It took my sleep-addled brain a moment to process what I was seeing. The activity light on my webcam was on. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The camera shouldn't have been active. I hadn't used it since my weekly call with my parents the day before, and I always made sure to close all my applications before going to bed. As I stared at the light, trying to convince myself I was imagining things, it suddenly turned off. Sleep was impossible after that. I spent the rest of the night with my back against the wall, staring at the camera, wondering if I was losing my mind. When morning finally came, I immediately checked my computer for any signs of unusual activity. Everything seemed normal at first, until I noticed a new folder on my desktop labeled Watching. My hands were shaking as I double-clicked the folder. Inside was a series of video files, each labeled with a date and time. With mounting horror, I opened the most recent one. The video showed my room in night vision, with me sleeping peacefully in my bed. The timestamp matched the previous night. There were dozens of these videos, going back weeks. Some were just recordings of my empty room. Others showed me studying, changing clothes, or sleeping. In one particularly disturbing video, someone, I couldn't make out who, stood in my doorway watching me sleep for several minutes before quietly closing the door. Attached to the last video was a text file. Dear Subject 23, thank you for your unwitting participation in our social experiment. Your daily routines have provided valuable data for our research into human behavior patterns. Don't worry about the footage. It's being stored securely on our servers and will only be used for academic purposes. We've particularly enjoyed watching you sleep. Your REM cycles are fascinating. P.S. You really should be more careful about who you let use your computer. The Observer. I immediately disconnected my computer from the internet and called Marcus. He didn't answer. I tried again and again, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. Finally, after what felt like hours, he texted back, I can explain. Meet me in the computer lab. The computer lab was in the basement of the science building, and at that hour, it was deserted. Marcus was waiting for me, looking pale and nervous. As soon as I walked in, he started talking, the words tumbling out in a rush. While researching for his dark web video, he'd stumbled upon a forum dedicated to surveillance experiments. The members claimed to be researchers studying human behavior through unauthorized observation. They promised access to their research database in exchange for installing their observation software on other computers. Marcus had initially convinced himself it was harmless, just another internet rabbit hole to explore for his channel. But when he installed their software on my computer, he realized too late what he'd done. The program gave them complete access to my system, including remote control of the webcam and microphone. I tried to remove it, he said, his voice shaking. But every time I attempted to uninstall the software, they threatened to release all the footage they'd collected. They said they'd send it to everyone in the university directory. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. How do we fix this? Marcus had already contacted a friend in the computer science department who specialized in cybersecurity. Together, they developed a plan to isolate the malicious software and systematically remove it while preventing any data from being transmitted to the Observer's servers. The next few days were a blur of activity. We backed up all my important files, completely wiped my hard drive, and reinstalled everything from scratch. Marcus's friend helped us set up additional security measures and showed me how to monitor my network for suspicious activity. But the damage was done. My sense of privacy and security had been shattered. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even after moving to a different dorm room and getting rid of anything with a camera or microphone. My grades suffered as I became increasingly paranoid, jumping at shadows and staying up all night watching my door. The university's counseling center helped me work through some of the trauma, but it took months before I could sleep through the night again. Marcus and I never really recovered from this. How could we? He eventually transferred to a different school, his YouTube channel abandoned and forgotten. Years have passed since then, but the experience has left an indelible mark on my life. I still cover all my cameras with tape when they're not in use, and I never leave my devices running overnight. Sometimes, when I'm alone in my apartment and catch a glimpse of a blinking light from some electronic device, my heart still skips a beat. The internet can be a wonderful tool for connection, but it can also be a window through which unknown eyes watch us, waiting in the digital darkness. We invite these eyes into our homes, our bedrooms, our most private moments, often without considering the consequences. My story is just one of countless cautionary tales about the price of this technological convenience. The observers never contacted me again, and I never found out who they really were or what they did with all those recordings of me. Sometimes I wonder if they're still out there, watching other unsuspecting people through their webcams, collecting their data for whatever twisted purpose they claim to serve. I still video chat with my parents every Sunday, but now I use a laptop with a built-in camera that has a physical shutter. And every night, before I go to bed, I double-check that it's closed. Some might call it paranoia, but I prefer to think of it as wisdom earned through experience. Because in this increasingly connected world, you never really know who might be watching from the other side of the screen. That little red light on your webcam might mean nothing, or it might mean you're being observed, analyzed, and recorded by strangers with unknown intentions. So the next time you're sitting alone in your room, take a moment to look around at all your connected devices. That smart TV in the corner, the security camera by your door, the webcam on your computer. Each one is a potential window into your private world. And remember, just because you can't see someone watching doesn't mean they can't see you. As for me, I've learned to find a balance between staying connected and protecting my privacy. I still use technology, still make video calls, still participate in our increasingly digital world. But I do it with my eyes wide open, always aware that the same tools that bring us closer together can also make us vulnerable in ways we never imagined. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm about to turn off my computer, I catch my reflection in the dark screen. For a split second, I see myself as they saw me. Just another subject to be observed, another set of data points to be collected. And in that moment, I remember why I never sleep with a computer in my room anymore. Because in the end, the scariest thing isn't the possibility of being watched. It's not knowing whether you are or aren't. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it grows like a weed in the garden of your mind, spreading its roots into every moment of your life, until you can never quite shake the feeling that somewhere, in some dark corner of the internet, unknown eyes are still watching, waiting, and recording every move you make. And that's why, to this day, I always triple-check my webcam before going to bed. But hey, what about you? Have you ever experienced something strange with your webcam or other devices? Let me know in the comments below. If this story kept you up at night and you want more creepy tech tales, make sure to smash that like button. It really helps the algorithm show these videos to more people who might need to hear these warnings. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I post my next video. I've got some seriously disturbing stories coming up about smart home devices and AI assistants that you definitely won't want to miss. Stay safe out there, and remember, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't watching.